Okay, so here I've got some leather, and here I've got our little ghosty ghoulie again. So this is the right side. You may, just to make sure that you definitely get it the right way every single time, is write an R on your tracing so that you're not getting confused and not mixing it up. Now we do need to do some more prep work before we actually stitch our leather on top of our felt, but we're going to be using this template to do part of that prep work. So in advance we want to make sure that we cut out our leather first, and then when we're stitching into this to get our defined lines, it won't be damaging it for doing our leather later, because if you completely make a mess of this, then obviously you'd have to trace it out again in order for you to use that tracing for your leather. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to apply that onto the leather, and then we can cut our leather out. So just for ease, I'm going to turn that leather over, and so what I normally do is I say, this is the right side, this is the right side, slide it together. So that would go behind there, and then when you turn it over, you've got your ghoul on the other side. Now make sure that you're aware that when you've got that on there, you can then move it around. You've got to make sure that you get it the right way round, okay? So this has definitely got to be on the right side, and obviously because it's on the back, it's on the wrong side here. So you can just shuffle it about so that you can get the optimum use of your leather. So if we put it over there in that corner, okay, we'll lose very little here, and then we'll have all this left over to use for another project at some other time. So you can either hold that on, but because it's in a slightly unusual shape, it would be better to just put a little bit of Pritt stick on, or glue stick. Okay, so I'm just going to put some little dabs of glue stick on there. I'm going to turn that over, and then I'm going to just arrange it again on my leather. Okay, and that will just hold it in place so that when you're cutting it out, it's not moving and you accidentally get the wrong shape, because it's really, really important to get our shape the correct size now. Okay, so I'm just going to move that over slightly, actually. Just bear with me 1 second, just so that I've got a slight bit of a gap there. Okay, so there we go. There's our tracing on our leather. Okay, so we're going to start to cut. Now I'm going to start here because it'll make it much easier. Okay, this is a 3x3 inch piece of leather, and we're just right on the edge there. Now obviously we cut our leather slightly in, so we don't need to give any allowance here for the felt. However, we are going to be putting some extra padding down, so just at that end there, I'm just going to cut slightly bigger. Okay, and then I'm just going to make this slightly bigger here, so I'm just going to cut in there like that and come round. Doesn't need to be any bigger at the bottom areas, but it just needs to be slightly bigger just on the outer edges there. So here we're going to come round here like that, and then when we're doing this bit again, we can just cut in there like that and down, and then we need to make sure that when we're doing this little bit, we just give a slight allowance for the difference in width, and then come back up very close to that edge, and then again just give a slight allowance for the extra width there. Okay, so there we go. There's our piece of leather cut out. So that's our little bit of leather. Now we just need to take our tracing paper off. Okay, and then we need to move our leather away. Okay, so what we need to do next is we need to place this perfectly over our couched area of felt. Okay, so we're just going to line it up nicely, And what we're going to do is we're just going to put some lines on, which are our lines on our ghost. I'm just going to move that slightly so that we can see the bottom bit just there. Okay, so just 3 stitches maybe, just to determine where this particular line is going. Okay, so we've got 1, 2, and then 3. That's our first line. Okay, and then we've got our next line, which is just down here. Okay, so we're 1, probably get away with just 2 stitches on that one. 1, and then make sure that you're holding the tracing to the fabric, because if you're not, when you come up into the tracing, it will lift. And now with this one, you can just go right on the edge and stitch in, and that'll be a nice long straight stitch, that one. And then we'll just do another stitch just about here for this side. Okay, like that. Okay, and then we're going to come down here. I'm going to do 3 little stitches because there's a slight curve at the top of that one, remembering that there's a slight curve at the top of this one as well, so we need to make sure that we put that in slightly, and you'll see what we're going to do that with shortly. Okay, so we're just going to come around here like that. Do our last little stitch into the tracing paper there for that line, and then we've got this one last line just up here where we're just going to do 2 big stitches. Okay, so then we need to take our tracing paper off. Okay, so that's our, just going to do a little stay stitch there, because obviously if you don't do your stay stitch, then when you're pulling off your tracing, potentially you will also pull out your thread. Okay, so there's our stitch. Okay, I can chop that off at the back, and then we can just put a score along those lines, and we can make sure that we can take the tracing paper off easily. So the way I tend to do this is I just score along the lines like that from stitch point to stitch point. Okay, like that. So we're just going to do all of those like that, and then you should be able to just take off your little ghosty in one go. Now you can see this is lifted slightly. What you can do is you can just give it a little tickle, and that takes any of the excess stitches through to the back. Okay, so there we go, there's our lines on our ghost. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to take our string. So this is our thick string, and we're going to take this and we're going to cut up little pieces of it. But the first thing we need to do with it is we need to wax it. So I'm just going to take my wax and I'm going to wax that. Now I'm going to wax that off screen because I don't want any of the little bits of wax getting onto my piece. Okay, so you need to wax it about 4 to 5 times. It does significantly damage your wax, but it makes a real difference with how well the thread, the string holds together. So you'll see the difference in a minute of what it was like before and what it was like afterwards. So this is our string now. Okay, and if I just show you a little bit of string, that's what it was like before. So you can see the ends there, it's moving about a little bit. When you've got this now, you know, it holds together really nicely. Okay, so we're going to take that and we're going to cut little areas here, and then we're going to apply them onto the surface. Okay, so what you need to do is you need to give it a little bit of a roll like that, and because it's been nicely waxed, it will hold in that shape. Okay, and that'll form a nice rounded area that's all about the same width. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're just going to plan out where we're going to put our little pieces of string. So we're going to put a piece of string just here. So I'm going to do a little zigzag line so that you can see where it goes. So we're going to put a piece of string there, okay, and we're going to put a piece of string just here and just here, okay, and then we're going to put a piece of string just here, okay, and just there, all the way up to there, okay. So that's where our pieces of string are going to go. So what we need to do is we need to make sure we take our needle with some translucent thread in there for us to couch over the string with. Okay, so I'm just going to move that away, and obviously our first piece was just here, okay. So we're just going to take that piece, I'm going to trim off the end so it's nice and straight. So let's just trim that off there like that. Give it another little bit of a twist, okay. I'm going to just come up with our stitch just about there on that line almost, okay. I'm going to bring our string just here, okay, hold that down a little bit, and then we're just going to go over the string like that, okay. So I'm going to do my stitches a reasonable distance apart at this precise moment in time, okay, like that. And then once I've done that, I'll then infill in between those stitches, okay. So I'm just going to trim that off just there as well. So let's just trim that. Let's take that bit off, okay. So we're going to trim just there, and you might want to just give it a little bit of an extra twirl, okay. And then we're going to push it into shape and just stitch up here like that, okay. So that's that stitch, and then we've got our last stitch just there, and that forms part of that end of the string. Just make sure that you bring that way, and then when it goes over, and then what you need to do then is you need to just infill in between. So you need to do about 3 stitches in between each one of those to secure that really well in place, okay. So we're going to do that for every single one now, okay, and then you can see exactly where each one of those lies, and I'm just going to speed that up for you so that you're not having to watch the slowness of putting string down onto your felt, okay. There we go. So that's part of our first one, and you just need to come along. Now again, you might just want to twist that, make sure that it's tighter in the area. You could do it with a pair of tweezers if you wanted to as well. So you could just take your tweezers and twist it around, okay, and then it tightens it up in the string just there, okay. there you have it. So we've got all our string base down, we've got our felt base down, and we just need to start with our leather next.